someone told the first story ever. Thousands of years later, we still can't stop listening. And tonight, that same tribe is about to hear the same story they heard last week. Everyone already knows how it ends. They're going to listen anyway. Personally, I love this one because it's basically the origin story of your grandma. Every single culture, everywhere on Earth, ended up with the exact same character, the person who tells stories. And once you notice that pattern, you can't unnotice it. Let's call her Bella. Every group had a Bella. Not the fastest runner, not the best with a spear. Honestly, kind of useless in a fight. But the second the sun went down, Bella became the most important person in the entire camp. She'd stretch her arms out wide, lower her voice, and go, "You were not there for what I saw today." And every single person, even the ones who were literally standing right next to her when it happened, leaned in like they weren't. Here's the thing about Bella's stories. They got better every single time she told them. The animal got bigger. The danger got closer. By the third telling, a slightly annoyed wild boar had somehow become a legendary beast that looked her dead in the eye. Nobody called her out on it. Nobody said, "That's not what happened," which is strange, right? A tribe that couldn't afford to waste time or energy on anything useless kept this one person around, specifically to exaggerate. Turns out, Bella wasn't just entertainment. She was the tribe's memory. If someone got hurt near a certain ravine, Bella didn't just remember it. She performed it loudly, dramatically, for weeks, until literally every child in camp knew, "Don't go near the ravine," without ever almost dying to learn it themselves. Think about how efficient that actually is. Instead of 40 separate people, all having to personally, individually, almost get eaten to learn the same lesson. One guy has a bad afternoon, and Bella turns it into free education for the entire camp, delivered with sound effects. That's not a small thing. That might genuinely be one of the best inventions our species ever came up with, and it doesn't even require a single tool. She also happened to know exactly who in camp shared their food, and who quietly didn't. And somehow, that information always found its way into her stories too. Funny how that works. Nobody taught Bella how to do this, by the way. There was no manual. She probably just told a normal boring story one night, forgot one small detail, made something up to fill the gap, and noticed everyone leaned in harder. That's it. That's the whole invention. One accidental improvisation. That worked a little too well. And here's a detail that genuinely makes me laugh. Bella almost certainly wasn't the only storyteller in her camp, which means somewhere there was a rival. Some other guy, let's call him Doff, telling his own version of the exact same hunting trip, except in his version, he was the hero. In Bella's version, Doff tripped over a root and nearly speared his own foot. In Doff's version, that same moment becomes a daring last-second dodge. Two people, same event, competing every single night for who could tell it better. Humans have been arguing about, "That's not how it happened," since before we had a word for argument. Some nights, half the camp sat by Bella's fire and half sat by Doff's, which means if you think about it, the very first fandom rivalry in human history was two guys arguing over who fell down harder. Bella also had to train someone eventually, because storytellers get old too. So picture some kid, let's call him Tuck, trying his very first big performance. Wrong pacing, gives away the ending in the first 10 seconds, forgets the boar entirely, and just starts talking about how tired his legs were. Nobody leaned in. A couple of people actually got up and left to go check on the fire. And somewhere in that painfully awkward moment is the exact same feeling every single person who's ever tried stand-up comedy, or posted their first video, or told a joke that landed with dead silence, knows a little too well. Bella probably just put a hand on his shoulder and said, "Try again tomorrow, slower this time." And he did, and eventually he got good. That's genuinely the entire history of storytelling, repeated a few billion times, one nervous new voice at a time. And honestly, we didn't evolve past this even a little. Somebody at work today said, "Okay, don't tell anyone I told you this, and told at least 4 people by lunch. That's not gossip. That's a Paleolithic survival instinct, wearing a lanyard. Your group chat that goes silent for 3 days and then explodes the second someone's relationship falls apart? That's Bella's fire. You are, biologically speaking, still gathered around the flame, except the flame is a phone screen and the boar is now. You won't believe what he texted her. But if you really want to see Bella at full power, just look at what happens the second you finish an episode, and that little countdown starts ticking. Next episode in 5. You know exactly what she's doing. She's leaning forward, lowering her voice, going, "You are not ready for what happens next." And somehow it still works on you. Every time. That's not an accident, by the way. Every writer's room, every streaming algorithm, is basically running Bella's exact playbook. End on the part right before the boar attacks. Never the part after. Cut it there, and the whole tribe stays up way past when they should have gone to sleep, just to find out what happens. And YouTube runs on the same fuel, just wearing a thumbnail instead of face paint, a shocked expression, 3 bold words, and a question mark. That's a modern hunter going, "You will not believe what I found out there." You click. Bella wins again. Even the comment section underneath is basically the fire circle talking back. Someone typing, "This happened to me too," is doing the exact same thing as the guy who used to nod along at Bella's fire, going, "Yes, exactly. I saw a boar like that once too." We didn't invent a new behavior when we built the internet. We just gave Bella Wi-Fi. Even the giant, obviously fake blockbuster movies follow the exact same rule. Nobody watches a man fly through a city because they think it's real. We watch because somewhere underneath the special effects, it's still Bella's boar story. Bigger, louder, better lighting, worse popcorn prices. Bella's boar probably wasn't as big as she said. Everyone around that fire probably knew it too. And it didn't matter one bit, because the story wasn't really about the boar. It was about sitting close to people you trusted at the end of a hard day and feeling, for a few minutes, like you weren't alone out there. Not every story worked out perfectly, by the way. There's an old anthropological joke, only half joking, that at least one tribe somewhere probably had a "don't swim in that river, it's cursed" story that started because one guy just didn't feel like swimming that day and got a little too creative explaining why. And it worked so well that generations later, people were still avoiding a perfectly safe river because a story outlived the actual reason for it. Which, honestly, is still happening. Somewhere right now, someone's avoiding a restaurant because of one bad Yelp review from 2019, written by someone who was probably just in a bad mood that day. Here's where it gets genuinely funny. If you zoom out far enough, Bella told her boar story maybe 200 times in her life. Took learned it from her and told his own slightly exaggerated version another few hundred times. His apprentice did the same. And so on, as for hundreds of generations. By the time you're 10 or 15 generations deep, that mildly annoyed wild boar isn't a boar anymore. It's a massive, fire-breathing creature that only the bravest hunter in tribal history managed to defeat. Somebody, somewhere, eventually wrote that version down and called it a legend. A few steps further, somebody built a temple around it. This is, unglamorously, how a huge number of ancient myths were probably born. Not as elaborate religious inventions from day one, but as one person's slightly exaggerated Tuesday, retold enough times that the exaggeration became the truth. Bella died eventually. Obviously, everyone does. There was almost certainly a last night where she told the boar story one final time, voice a little weaker, hands a little slower, not knowing it was the last time. And a few days later, she was gone. But the story didn't go with her. Some kid sitting closest to the fire that night carried it forward, boar and all, without even realizing he was now the one keeping her alive. Bella's name disappeared completely. Nobody alive today could tell you who she really was, but some tiny fragment of the way she told a story, the pause before the big reveal, the way she'd lower her voice, might still be sitting somewhere, buried inside a story you already know.
So here's the full loop back to back. Stories started because a tribe needed a way to remember danger. without everyone having to get hurt to learn it. And they survived generation after generation because listening to them just plain felt good. Sitting close to people you trusted, at the end of a hard day. That second part never went away. It's the entire reason Netflix autoplays the next episode. It's the entire reason you clicked on this video instead of the 10 other things you should probably be doing right now. Bella is still around. She just goes by a different name now. Grandma. Grandpa. That one uncle who tells the same fishing story every single holiday, and somehow the fish keeps getting bigger every year too. Or honestly, a channel like this one. And maybe that's the actual point worth sitting with for a second. We like to imagine ancient humans as these grim, silent survivors, just grinding through one brutal day after another, scraping by. But somewhere in every single one of those camps, there was a Bella, making people laugh, making people gasp, making a boring, exhausting day feel like it meant something. They weren't just surviving. They were already doing the thing you're doing right now, at the end of your day, scrolling for something good to watch. Same fire, same circle, same reason we lean in, even when we already know exactly how it ends.